And welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the importance of being an affectionate father. So before we left, you were kind of talking about me a little. And how great I am.
Well, I was just acknowledging that, I can see, if I rewind the clock, there was a little bit of dysfunction going on being the middle child. There was some stuff that was going on when you were in your 5 or 6 years old. You started lying, and there was a little phase you were going through. And I remember your mom being frustrated and coming to me saying, just crying, saying, how do we get this little girl to stop lying? And I just remember thinking to myself, I need to hook her heart. And so I remember sitting down to you and just speaking to you like you were smart enough and intelligent enough, and just being from a vulnerable place, I kept saying, do you trust me? And you kept saying, yeah. And I said, do you like being trusted? And you said, yeah. And I said, well, when you start lying, people stop trusting you. And if it's important to you to being trusted, then so I started really just explaining it to you what the drawbacks to lying is. And you were a very smart kid. It made sense. And so I really saw you little bit at a time. You would tell the truth. And then I remember I had to consciously say, I'm so proud of you for telling the truth. And your face would be all smiling. And sometimes you have little crocodile tears. So, you were smart enough to understand. I just needed to be conscious enough and aware enough to really take time to explain that to you, and you got past that phase. And I can look back and see that had I not handled it that way and either punished you or ignored it, you would be a manipulative, lying person today. But because I was just, in that phase, I was practicing to be loving and caring and compassionate. So a lot of my parenting style came in, and I can see the difference. So I've been watching you evolve and grow through the years. I can rewind the tape and see just little pivotal moments to become the woman that you are today.
Yeah, I remember growing up and being in that phase in my life, and I also remember people not believing me when I told the truth. And I do remember you talking to me and telling me that was going to keep happening. And I remember you explaining that situation, the same thing, like, if people aren't going to believe you when you are telling the truth. Right. And because I had experienced that, and you validated that was a real thing just by talking to me, I was scared. I didn't want that to happen again. So I had made a commitment to myself, being conscious. I don't know, I was like 5 years old. And I said, you can't lie because no one's going to believe you when you're telling the truth.
Now, you said that to yourself. Mm-hmm. See, now that's what's important. Had I had told you that, like giving you advice 1,000 times, it would have been just my advice. But because I prepared it to you in a certain way, and then you decided that for yourself, you flipped your own switch and said to yourself, hey, if I don't make this course correction, people aren't going to trust me, and I don't like that. And then you decided to make that change within yourself. That's the important part, is when parents can figure out how to plant seeds that sprout from within the child. That's power, rather than being the parent that's always scolding or saying you should do this or why aren't you doing that. If you can learn how to do it in question form, ask questions, you're dropping little seeds. So for you to decide that for yourself, I think is powerful, because you owned it. It became your truth once you said it to yourself, right?
Right. And I think not that punishing isn't effective. I just don't think it's as effective as I guess talking through things. I don't
like the word punishment. I like the word holding people accountable to either rules that we've agreed on, or explaining to people that there are consequences to be paid. Right. Punishment has a negative connotation to it, like you're being punished, rather than, no, I'm not punishing you. I'm just holding you accountable to the rules that we set forth.
Right.
That's different, because I'm preparing you to get out into society where there are rules, and if you don't follow the rules, there's going to be a consequence. All I'm doing is mimicking in our home what you're going to have to learn to be an outstanding citizen in the world. But as a victim, as a kid, you're looking through the victim perspective. You're saying, you're punishing me. Mm-hmm. And that's where the course correction needs to come from the parent to say, no, I'm not punishing you. I'm just holding you accountable to what you said that you were going to do, which was follow the rules that we agreed on. And if you haven't agreed on rules with your kids, that's probably another error in your parenting. I think we live in the assumption as parents that I make the rules and you got to follow them. But when they get to a certain age, what if you said, let's co-create some rules that you can agree and I can agree, and we come to as a parent, you're still the one deciding if you're going to accept the rule or not. But give your kids a little bit of credit that they can come up with some rules with you guys, that you guys both come up together, and then you both take ownership of it. I take ownership, and then the child takes ownership. Now, when the child takes ownership of the rule, do you think they're going to break them more often if they own the rule versus the parent deciding that that's the rule?
Yeah, probably not. I think it holds them a little bit more accountable, and they feel a little bit more responsible because they've agreed and they're aware.
That's right. That's right. They remember, oh shoot, I said yes to that.
Or I came up with that.
Yeah, exactly. So if you came up with the rule and I'm enforcing the rule to say, okay, now we're gonna have to, you have to pay the piper, hand your phone over, and you start, complaining and whining, go, wait, you're the one that came up with that rule. Oh, that's right. And then now it's, you as a parent get to be the enforcer, but if you co-create the rules with your kids, then they take ownership of it and they're no longer the victim. They can look at it as a responsible version in that.
Also, as a little kid, there's a lot of things that we don't know are right and wrong yet, and we'll get, I don't want to say punished, but we'll get in trouble or have to pay the consequences for something that we weren't even aware of because we haven't been taught yet. So, as a 5-year-old, and I don't even really know what lying is. I just do it. I've never been told this is what lying is and this is a rule in our house. You can't lie. And all of a sudden now I'm paying the consequences for something,
That's
so
funny because as you say that, I saw your little 5-year-old face come in front of me, and I'm like, okay, you're going to get punished for lying. And you're going to go, okay. And you go to your room and you're probably in there going, what is lying? Right. And what an error on my part, because I never taught you what lying means. I just made an assumption that you know what lying means. And so instead of sitting down and taking responsibility as a parent to say, before I can hold people accountable to the rules, I have to first teach them what the rule is. I have to make them accountable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's my job to teach you all those distinctions. What is lying? What is being what is having integrity? What is having honor? It's my job as a parent to teach you all those fundamentals of life, some principles, some values. Every week we should go over a new distinction of these powerful leadership distinctions, and I should start teaching you that. What does it mean to be your word? Say what you mean what you say, and follow through on it. What does it mean to be on time? What does it mean to be trustworthy? What does it mean to be honest? What does it mean to be? And so when your kids are 3-4 years old, they have the capacity to start learning that stuff. You should be committed diligently to teach them those distinctions.
Plus, if they learn it at a young age, now when they're older, it just comes naturally. It's not something that's awkward or they're afraid of doing it. It's because they've already been raised this way and they know what it is from a really young age. The downfall, though, could be they expect other people to be this way as well. And I know that I do that a lot. I have a lot of expectations. I expect people to be on time. I expect people to be held accountable, and I expect them to have integrity and be their word and do what they say they're going to do because I would. And sometimes I get disappointed because I set up those expectations.
You know what I love about the show is that we can start a topic and then never get back on the topic.
What were we talking about again?
We were talking about being an affectionate father and how important that is. I wanted to go over a couple of distinctions. One of them is to hug your kids. And I know you've probably heard it a million times how important hugging is. Let's talk about that distinction of hugging. Hugging is a symbol. It's a universal symbol for what? What do you think hugging would be a symbol for?
Love.
Okay. It could be a symbol for love. It could be a symbol for acknowledging that you're there. It could be a universal symbol for I see you.
Okay.
It could be a symbol for I recognize you. It could be a symbol for, hey, I appreciate you. It could be a symbol for all the things that you want to acknowledge that person, acknowledging that they're there, that they matter, that they're important, that they exist. People are yearning to have some purpose. They want to have some significance in the world, especially kids. Kids don't know that they have a purpose. kids look around and they see parents looking through them or over them, not at them. And so a hug just lets them know, oh, I am here. I do exist. I am important. I do matter. And so if you're not a hugger and you're a parent, there's some work for you that you need to get done, or you're going to start to see your kids suffering in the later years. They're going to be dysfunctional, and it's going to be because they just didn't get enough hugs at home. They didn't get enough self-expression of your love for them.
So for, let's say, for instance, a man that's listening right now who did grow up in a home like that, how do they make that change? Or so for you, how did you make that change, like from the awkwardness, or what clicked for you that this was something you needed to do?
I looked at that time. I don't think you were born yet. I think your brother was born. He was about 3 or 4 years old, and I remember telling myself, in my family, we don't hug, meaning me and my mom and my dad. So what I did was I made a commitment that I was going to start hugging my mom and dad more every time I seen them. So I'll never forget, I made a conscious commitment that this was just going to be something I was going to start, and it was going to be a new family tradition, was going to start hugging. So one day, it's me and my wife and your brother, and we're there at the house, and we're saying goodbye. My mom makes the little goodie, right, the little dinner to take home back to us. And I said, thank you, Mom, I love you. And I reached over and I hugged her, and she was like, her body tensed up because it was like weird, right? She probably hadn't hugged me since I was 4 years old. But we hugged each other. I'm 23, and she kind of stiffed up, and then she kind of put her arm around me and kind of eased off. And then when I let go, I said, I really want you to know I love you. And she said to me, you know, son, I love you too. And that's when I realized, wow, it's taboo in our family to hug and say I love you, and it propelled me to want to do that even more. So then the next time we were together, I hugged my dad. It was a little awkward, and I had to be willing to go through that awkward stage because I saw the bigger vision. I saw a family of me and my kids and their kids, my grandkids, all at the house, and everyone's hugging each other. But I knew that tradition wouldn't happen if I didn't start it. I decided that I was going to be the one to start that new tradition. And now this is 19, 20 years later, I'm proud to say that because of that tradition, now my mom hugs my sisters hug them, I hug my sisters. It's now just part of the air that we breathe. It's the water we swim in. It's just part of what we are now. But it wasn't, and it never was going to be, had I not decided that if it's to be, it's up to me. And I just had to be courageous enough to be willing to do that, and I had to be willing to get rejected, right?
Right.
I had to be willing to have my mom kind of get awkward, and I had to be willing.
Yeah, maybe she didn't reach around and actually hug you back.
That's right. I think that people's fear when it comes to hugging is that they're not going to get hugged back, and I find it weird because I can walk around in the street and open my arms up, and somebody will walk right in and hug me, and I rarely get rejected. Even when someone doesn't hug me back, they just walk right by me. I don't see that as a rejection. I choose to see it as, wow, they must be so lost, broken, hurt, or afraid, or have fear run them that they just didn't respond. I don't see it as I don't see rejection anymore. I've trained myself to choose to have a different interpretation that's not about me. I don't make it about me anymore.
When I had first gone off to college, one of my roommates, I became really good friends with her. I had hugged her once, and she tensed up, and she didn't hug me back. And
the first time, you mean?
Yes. And I realized this was the first time I've never been hugged back. I realized that this is what being rejected by a hug feels like. And it was so weird, so taboo to me. It had never happened before, but I still kept hugging her all the time. I'd say, bye, I'm gonna miss you, I'm gonna go to class, and I'd give her a hug just to do it as a joke. And eventually now she hugs people all the time. She hugs me all the time, like when I see her. And it just kind of reminds me that if I would have never have done that, or just because I naturally just want to I go to hug people, and if I had never done that, she may never have given any more hugs ever, just because she wasn't raised that way, or her family isn't like that. Doesn't mean that, her family away from her family, her school friends and her roommates don't have to be like that too.
This is what's amazing. I do transformational trainings, I can do a parent training, and I do this really intense workshop where, in this experiential exercise, it's called the choice line. And in the choice line, you get opportunities to choose how to show your affection to the other person. It could be eye contact, it could be a handshake, or it can be a hug, and everyone gets the opportunity to choose. When I get the whole line, the whole group is choosing the hug, I let them sit in there for about 3 minutes, 4 minutes sometimes. And what's amazing is after that exercise is over and we do sharing, what breaks my heart is that people will stand up on the microphone and they will be bawling. And they'll say things like, I can't believe that Jennifer here was the longest hug I've ever had in my entire life in this training room doing this workshop. And it wasn't even my husband, or it wasn't even my son. It wasn't like the one that holds the world record for the longest hug for me is not somebody that I love the most. And that wakes people up to a higher level of consciousness to say, wait a minute, what am I doing? We walk by each other in the hallways and we don't even say, hey, good morning. We don't even say, hey, I appreciate you. Or hey, you look beautiful today. Or wow, I like that shirt you got on. We walk by each other and we just act like no one's there. And that's not helping people remember who they are and realize that they are significant, that they have a purpose. We need each other to acknowledge each other, to let each other know that I am here, I exist, I'm important, and I matter. If we're just walking by and just glancing over each other, where it's almost like we're invisible. And I'm going to end with this note. In a certain village, in certain countries, if there's somebody that does something wrong, like steals or takes food or does something out of integrity, the whole tribe in the village will ignore that person for a day. That person will walk around and they'll just turn their back on them, because in that village, that's the most punishment you can get, is to be ignored. Can you imagine that they're so enlightened and they're so tuned in with each other, they're so as one, that to punish you is to ignore you, like you don't exist. And we do it in our culture without even thinking about it.
Not as a punishment.
Not as a punishment, but what we're doing to the human spirit is we're punishing each other. We don't realize that we're punishing each other by not being in the moment and present and focused on expressing my love for each other. We're doing it because now there's another distraction. I need to make more money. I got to get on Facebook and do this post. We have all these distractions when you should be focusing on who really matters to you, what's really important to you. And that's my wife, my kids, or my husband and my kids, and the people that are in my inner circle.
You know what I think would be kind of cool is if, if this is very unnatural to you, everything that we're talking about, maybe like set a quota for yourself. So every day you have to tell your kids that you love them at least 3 times, or you have to at least hug them once a day. And eventually that'll become natural and you'll do it out of habit. And maybe if it's not as genuine at first, by week 2, it's probably going to be a little bit more genuine.
Here's an invitation for you. If you are a woman in the Santa Clarita Valley or the 25 miles or 50 miles around the radius, every Tuesday night, I do a women's empowerment workshop out here in the Santa Clarita Valley on Tuesday nights at 6:30, and that's the work that we do. And we interact with each other, and we sit down and face to face, and we have eye contact, and we help you break through some of those barriers and some of those insecurities and some of those fears to have that kind of interpersonal growth, so you can take that into your home. We do that, and what's cool is it's like going to a gym where everybody's working out to get healthy and no one's judging each other. That loving environment where we can grow like that interpersonally, I'm doing that for free Tuesday nights for all women that are willing to show up there and have some courage to have those breakthroughs. So you don't have to try to figure out all on your own. You can do it by reaching out and finding that kind of an opportunity.
Great. Sounds great. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station. Today we were talking about the importance of being an affectionate father. We're going to go over a quick recap. So today we talked about why crying isn't a weakness.
We talked about being an affectionate father.
We talked about being authentic.
And we talked about the awkward stage, which is affection.
We talked about how vulnerability is powerful.
reinventing yourself,
dropping seeds in order to inspire your children,
getting over fear of being vulnerable,
agreeing to family rules,
accountable versus punishment,
and acknowledging each other.
and how important it is to hug your kids.
That's important. So next week,
I like how you said it. Importance.
The importance of being in effect like that.
Yeah.
All right.
What are we doing next week?
Next week, we're going to be discussing how to build up your kids. So do you want to tee that up? What's that going to look like or sound like?
Yeah, I want to talk about, how to empower your kids, how to build them up, how to get them to another higher level of consciousness, how to develop some confidence within them, how to create some self-awareness and assurance. And really what's going to boil down to is how well have you learned how to acknowledge them? And are you consciously acknowledging them at the pivotal moments when they really need it? Because there's kids that when they do something they're really proud of and they look around and no one's watching, you miss that opportunity. So here's an example. You have a 4-year-old little boy or girl, and they got their shoe on and they've watched you tie their shoe for the last year and a half. And so they want to sit there and they're on the floor and they're like trying to, out of memory, tie their shoe. And all of a sudden they tie it. And in that golden moment of being proud of themselves, they light up. Their spirit just lights and their eyeballs get big. And the first thing they do is what?
Look for you.
They look around to see who's watching them. They need to be seen. They need to be recognized. And if you're on Facebook or you're being distracted on bills or whatever it is that doesn't have you being a conscious parent in the moment and seeing how important it is to be seen as a kid, then you're missing that opportunity.
I think sometimes also parents think they're acknowledging their kids and it's not as effective. For instance, you could be on Facebook posting, "Oh, little Jimmy just learned how to tie his shoe. I'm so excited for him. I'm so happy," but you haven't acknowledged Jimmy and he has no idea that you're excited for him because he doesn't have a Facebook yet.
That's right. But that acknowledgement isn't really about Jimmy. Who is that acknowledgement about?
You, being a good parent.
That's right.
Teaching your kid how to tie their shoe.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of dysfunctions going on as parents in our own human journey that we need to get past. We need to overcome. We need to have some breakthroughs and have those kinds of awarenesses. And that's what this is about pointing some of those things out, even if it hurts, even if it stings and goes, "Ooh, I do that." I think that's the first.
If you mean if you identify with
if you're the one that's saying, on Facebook, just going on about how great everybody is, but you're not at home telling the people you love the most, "Hey, I appreciate you," or "Hey, you know what, I'm really proud of you," but yet you're out there blowing it up on social media to get the acknowledgement for you, but it's not authentically being done in your home in real time. You're not putting it into practice. That's what's really important. So what we're going to talk about is how to build up your kids, how to really just get them to a higher another level by acknowledging them.
Sounds great. We'll talk about that next week. Thank you so much for joining us today on My Conscious Dad with me, Jazmine Urbina, and my dad, Alex Urbina. We're here every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.